Hello there. In this short video, we're going to look at how to cite and reference images using the APA style. Images are one of the more complicated things to cite within APA. However, it is still a systematic process which we can follow step by step. Let's go. So, I've done a search on Google Images for the Kolb reflective cycle. I've got many options back, some of which I quite like. First of all, I'm going to have a look to see where they're coming from, what the author is, or the organisation which has created it. I'm going to exclude a few of them which I might have quite liked. For example, ResearchGate is not a formally published source. I'm also going to exclude Pinterest because, again, that's not a particularly academic source. So I've got a couple coming from things like journals. I've got some education network type things. Simply Psychology at a push might work, but I've identified I would quite like to use this one from OpenEDU because I'm aware that's coming from Open University or OpenLearn. I'm going to visit the source. Crucially, I'm not going to be using it from Google Images. We cannot cite Google Images. It is not a creator, it is an aggregator. So we need to find the original source it's coming from. In much the same way as when we're getting text from a source, we need to cite that in our reference list. When we find an image from a source, we need to cite that source in the reference list as well. So I would be referencing this in my reference list as a normal website. I found my image. It's handily at the top of the web page. I'm going to copy the image and pop it into my work. So I'm going to paste the image, and then I'm going to do a couple of bits of editing to it to make it sit nicely. I'm going to wrap the text squarely, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller because it sits in nicely, and pop it over on the right hand boundary. I'm then also going to insert a caption. When I insert a figure above or below, if I've used auto captioning, it will automatically have the correct number for that figure. That means it does a job for me automatically. If I need to generate a table of figures, it will do it for me automatically later at date as well. Note that I've given the short title of the image I wanted to use. If you haven't got an image title given, please give one which makes sense. Okay, so that's my basic figure thing set up. However, that's not actually a citation. For that, I'm going to have a quick look at our APA guide on LibGuides. Okay, so I'm going to go into the APA guide from our main LibGuide, guide to referencing, and then I'm going to be using APA, and there's guidance on images and tables just here. So, if we've got something which we're taking from another source, we'll use that tab, and it will give me the information I need to have a look at, and then I need to put note, and then some information, which we call a copyright attribution. So this is where it starts to get a little bit complicated because APA is designed really for published work rather than for necessarily for assignments. So we want to therefore have a copyright attribution coming after. So if you have a look at what the format of a copyright attribution is, it is essentially the same information we'd have in our reference, but in a slightly different order. So let's work through this for the source we've chosen step by step. Okay, so I'm going to write my reference list first of all because that's a little more straightforward. Again, this is a website, so all I need to do is use the same style I would always use for a web page. So OpenLearn is going to be my author. My year, I can't see one stated, so I'm therefore going to cite it as being no date. I'm going to give the title, which is Kolb's Learning Cycle. And I'm going to give a web page, so I can just grab that and I copy it over. What I do need to do is to make sure it's not in italics. And also, because I'm a bit pedantic, I'm going to put in a line break for it as well. Okay, so that's my reference done. That bit's quite straightforward. However, with my image, I now need to have a look at the note field. So let's have a look back at what we had for images and tables. Okay, so let's go back to what we had on the LibGuide and how to cite an image. So I'm going to first of all need to put note in italics and put from, and then I need to give my copyright attribution. Generally speaking, we're going to be working from images online, so I'm going to be using that as my base for today. So we are going from, and we identified it was called Kolb's reflective cycle earlier. Again, you could potentially copy that information. And you can see this doesn't feel particularly natural. So I need to put by, and because I haven't got a named author, I'm going to have to put open learn, same as I did before, making sure it always matches to what's in your reference list. If it was a named author, we put their first initial and their surname. That's what N author means there. I'm going to put no date rather than a year because I don't have one, and it's coming from open learn. And then we have our web address again. There we go. Okay, so you can see that does not give us the most elegant option, but it is definitely meeting what we were asked to give as part of our style just here. Okay, so potentially we may not need that open learn, but we should better off having it there so we can follow it. The other thing to note is, although we're required to give this information, it doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest thing in the world, so we can make it fairly small so it doesn't affect our assignment too much by inserting it. I would say 6 point is the smallest you can go on it, but we're given that information crucially so that it can be found later on. So I'm relatively happy with that, and I'm going to duplicate that style for each of the images I insert into my work. So when we put an image in, we need to make sure that we find a reputable source. We need to make sure we reference it in a normal way depending on the source we got it from. If it's a web page, we reference it as a web page. If it's coming from a journal, we reference it as a journal, and so on. And then in our actual assignment, where we've used the image, we use the figure option, and we use this note in this particular style. We say note from, then we give the title of the page, the author, either the name or the organization, the year, and the website name. We essentially replicate the reference information in a slightly different order. Thank you for watching this video on APA referencing for images. If you'd like any further support, please see the Academic Skills LibGuide pages for more information, video guides, and other fun things.